Beep, 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 beep. Morning, all that's new and improved from the Jester News Ass. Right, okay, folks. I sense your despair. I'm going to move this back. Go away. I sense your despair. Well, we all saw the result of the court case by 4 women in Scotland and the brave ladies north of the border and everybody else who was involved in helping them get there, including people that gave money to it. So I imagine there's a lot of you sitting around feeling disappointed this morning. I am not a legal blob. I'm not, legal. So like most people, I spend most of my time looking at this stuff in absolute abject horror. But you've got to remember a couple of things here, right? It's illegal to enter the Houses of Parliament wearing a suit of armour, right? Okay? It's also illegal to handle salmon in suspicious ways, and there is never an excuse for shooting a Scotchman. Right? Just to give some context, okay? The law's an arse. We know this, okay? So we have to take some comfort from the fact that this may not be quite so straightforward as the headlines and the bleating of the trans rights activists and their lunatic cohort would have you believe. So I sat down and read it. I don't understand it. I get some of it, but I don't get all of it, Like most people, I read it and go, what? But I picked out a few juicy bits, right? So let's have a look and see what these few juicy bits are, and then I'll follow up with something else that's of interest, okay? So 2 things today. Pay attention. Are you sitting comfortably? I shall begin. My lord. Right, here we go. It is important to reiterate, as was made clear, both in the first case, the 4 women in Scotland case, and on appeal, that the issue of transgender rights, which forms a backdrop, good word, backdrop, to this litigation, is an often contentious social policy debate which is beyond the scope of this case. What do you think that means? This is a very specific case about a very specific thing. It's about whether or not somebody with a GRC can be on the board of a company and counted as part of a gender balanced board. That's what the case was about. So that's the first thing to be aware of, is that it's beyond the scope. So it's not actually about transgender rights in general. It's about a very specific case in law. That's the first thing we need to understand, okay, because that's important. Then it moves on to say, I conclude that in this context, which is the meaning of sex for the purpose of the 2010 Act, sex is not limited to biological birth sex, but includes those in possession of a GRC obtained in accordance with the 2004 Act. So what it's saying is, if you've got a GRC, sex doesn't mean biological. If you've got a GRC, now this has serious ramifications from the wee Jimmy Cranky running Scotland at the moment, because if anybody can get one, see where it goes? That's where it leads, right? So it's serious. That's serious, because then it means you can have an entire board made up of men and 6 of them could say they're women. Or you could have an entire board made up of women and 6 of them could say they were men. Talk about undoing things, right? So it does undo things. That's sort of the couple of things that came out of it for me that I think are probably quite important, worth us considering. Considering? What am I on? That are worth us considering. God, a Christmas can't come soon enough. I'm going mad. I need a break. Right, okay. However, right, it also states that such a conclusion, the idea that, in this instance, within the court and within the law, which is an arse, such a conclusion does not offend against or give rise to any conflict with legislation where it is clear that sex means biological sex. For example, the Forensic Medical Service, where references to the sex of the forensic medical examiner can only mean, read fairly, that the victim should have access to the examiner of the same biological sex as themselves. I agree, says Judge Haldane. Okay. And there are no doubt many other such examples. A rigid approach in this context is neither mandated by the language of either statute nor consistent with their respective aims and purposes. What they're saying here is, I think, and there'll be legal commentators out there far more clever than I to say something, but as a layman, a laypersonage reading this, is that actually it only matters for this law, and it certainly doesn't seem to override anything else, except, of course, if the problem continues with wee Jimmy Crinkey running the country in Scotland. So it has serious ramifications for women, and serious ramifications for gay people, right? If this sort of shit is allowed to continue. But they're saying within this, I see, this is a matter of the nuance of law. A matter of the nuance of law, in which case it can be an arse. It's saying that the 2004 Act is a weighty piece of law, and so is the 2010, and this is about the interaction between the two, and in reference to boardrooms. But the ramifications are clear. However, for women in Scotland are able to appeal this ruling. There can be an appeal of this ruling, which I imagine we will hear about shortly. I don't want to preempt what they may have planned, but there will be an appeal. I am hopeful that there will be an appeal, and that we will see this case move forward, and then there'll be broader cases that come out of it, because this isn't specific. And this is how it's going to be. You've got to remember, when it comes to gender ideology, queer theory, all this nonsense that we're seeing, is that it is a template that attacks everything. So it's not just going to attack this, it's going to start on something else next. It's not going to stop. And it won't stop. Not in this narrow arena. It won't stop. This arena where they're using this idea of men and women and men, this confusion and conflation and queering of the reality of the sexless, that in that context, which is one of their most powerful threads, they're going to continue until it is stopped at its root. And the easiest way to stop it at its root is to repeal the GRA and to pass a law which makes sure that the words men, women, and the concept of sex are solidified in law as only biological in all cases. So we need to repeal the GRA. I put a link downstairs to an existing petition which was taken out, I believe, by Sex Matters. We need to get that petition to over 100,000. I urge you to share it as much as you can today on every social media, in order that this will then be debated in Parliament and we can see the true colour of the politicians' faces. That's the only way that I can see through that. Okay, that's the only way I can see through it. Now, in other areas, for example in America, there are other reasons to despair. I understand Biden's hosting a bunch of drag queens in the next couple of days. This is insane. I mean, there's something wrong, isn't there, going on over there in America? How's the Americals? How are you, all my Americal peeps? You there? But there's a newspaper called Jewish Voices, which have released, I think in the last couple of days, a survey of 1,000 people, which is interesting. Which is interesting. I mean, it's not a huge litmus, but it's up there. You know, normally around about 1,600, 2,000, but it's a start. And this new poll. Before I start, just subscribe, will you? Hit the button. Buy me a coffee if you can, help me out. Or become a warrior teacher and join my substrate, you know, all the usual stuff. And start and share, link, you know, do all that, and retweet lots of things. A new poll has revealed a huge number of Americans say the transgender movement, adopted by Joe Biden as a major part of his term's agenda, has gone too far. Let's have a see what this poll says. The survey, working with McLaughlin and Associates, has found that 75% of voters who have an opinion on the issue, say the transgender movement has gone too far by encouraging underage minors to use drugs and surgeries to mutilate their bodies. You ask your average person in the street, should kids be doing that? And they're going to say no. We put a pause on it over here. We're sort of going, whoa, no. The poll was of 1,000 likely general election voters and was done in October. The results were highlighted by the Washington Stand this week. Americans disagree on many issues, but they are united in saying that the transgender movement has gone too far. They overwhelmingly suspect that social media and the medical industry are exploiting children for self-serving financial gain. Yeah, I overwhelmingly suspect that too, which is interesting because that's why the NHS, the public body, reports to us. Turf Island lighting up on their map of turfery. That was quite fun. Okay. A picture of most turfy activity in the world. Turf Island. That's us, folks. Keep up the good work. The arguments take place in law and they'll take place one painful step at a time, but in the social sphere, folks, keep up the fight. So 69% of voters who had an opinion says that it's due to social media. 70% believes the medical industry is promoting gender transition for young children and for financial gain. The cancel campaign, demanded by those promoting transgenderism, which is this cancelling culture where they want to silence people and keep us quiet, you know, these angry, wokey twats, right? Been so effective, 41%, been so effective that 41% say they are reluctant to share their views with friends and family, and 8% say they don't because they don't want to be cancelled. The problem with the 8% that don't want to be cancelled in any given thing, right? Think about the population as 100%. There'll be 10% who will do the problem, 10% who will do the fighting, and 80% who will follow whoever wins. That 8% is a problem. It means they're 80% of neutering people who want to speak. And another 16% say they just don't want to offend people. Yeah, you've got to get over that. Just offend people. Fuck them. Right? You don't offend people. People get offended because offence is taken. It is not given. Don't worry about it. Don't worry so much. Right? Please stop doing that. Okay? The poll comes as transgender activism has increasingly embroiled the nation in conflict, from school boards to medical boards to state legislatures. The movement has gone too far. The belief that the movement has gone too far is so widespread that the majority of people in just about every subgroup, I mean, it's got a plurality here, in just about every subgroup, think there's a problem. Evidence continues to build that the transgender movement is overstepping the bounds of propriety, decency, morality. How many do you want to add, right? And any other limit that you can imagine. They've got states are helping students transition their gender at school and are working to hide it from parents. Activists have built a whole infrastructure in schools, curriculums, questionnaires, exactly the same as in the UK, counsellor trainings, closets of cross-dress clothing. Can you believe this? That's what we used to do in the pub years ago. Cross-dress clothing. Designed to persuade and abet children to change their gender identity without their parents' knowledge. A key element of the agenda is how activists introduce transgender propaganda into schools, the report said. I've spoken about this before. The propaganda comes in the form of nursery rhymes with the younger kids, or in the form of putting words and language within any other given subject. Yep, so that it's becoming part of the everyday language, which moves this movement of lunatics forward. So, right, two things there, okay? So we've got a petition that says that things are possibly waking up in America, and we're seeing more evidence of this with school boards being taken on by parents, which is exactly what's going to happen here. And secondly, we have a ruling on a nuance of law that is very, very small, but that has massive implications for women. And in order for us to ensure that that kind of nuance is not argued out in law and filling the coffers of the lawyers for the next 100 years, is to repeal the GRA. So that's the message today, folks. We need to repeal the GRA. Okay, so I'll put the link to the GRA repeal petition downstairs. We need to get it out there, and we need to make sure we get it under 1,000 signatures. Share it everywhere. Share it everywhere. Do a lot of sharing, and we'll be all right. Other than that, onwards.